Hello and welcome to the channel. I am here for a list video for you guys. Now, this is more of a controversial list video because I'll be going over some metal subgenres that I personally dislike. I got about 4 subgenres here. Now, keep in mind, if you like any of these subgenres, that is totally fine with me. I'm totally cool with it. This is just my personal list, and I just personally cannot see myself getting into any subgenre that is on this list. Also, if you want to leave in the comments some subgenres of metal that you personally dislike or can't get into, feel free to let me know in the comments. On that note, let's go ahead and get started. This is in no particular order, by the way. And I think we'll start off with black metal. Now, I think it's no secret at this point that I'm not really a big fan of black metal. I think that's pretty obvious for some of you guys, given the content, of course, and given the stuff that I have said before. And one of the reasons I'm not really into black metal is because, well, I'm not really into the extreme side of metal in general. I think black metal is just a little too extreme for me, which I know that's a very un-metal thing to say, like, wow, are you sure you're even a metalhead and you can't even handle extreme stuff? I have no shame in saying that, okay? I mean, I used to have sort of a tolerance to extreme metal and all that, but I came to a point where I realized that that's not really for me. And yeah, the extreme stuff is a little much, and the whole satanic idea that accompanies black metal is something else that's a little too much as well. Yeah, I know some people say that black metal is also an essential if you want to be a metalhead, which I think is a load of BS, especially since black metal doesn't really mean that much to the genre of metal as a whole. Now, yes, I do realize it has its following and its audience, but I have no idea where this idea where, you know, if you get into the heaviest thing possible, you're more metal than anyone. I don't know where that concept and idea came from, where, you know, the heavier, the more metal it is. I don't know where that came from, but I think it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. You know, to me, what would classify as an essential subgenre is maybe new wave of British heavy metal and thrash metal. Pretty much subgenres that started skyrocketing in the 70s and even the early 80s. So there you have it. I'm not really a big fan of black metal, so yeah, once again, if you do like it, that's totally cool with me. So yeah, now the next subgenre I want to jump to is deathcore. Kind of the same reason with black metal. I'm just not really into the extreme side of metal in general. And deathcore, it is a little too extreme. And sometimes it can come off too edgy, too, you know, try-hard-y, if that makes sense. And sometimes it can even be repetitive at times, at least as far as the deathcore that I've, you know, heard, of course. Now, obviously, I haven't heard a lot of it, but what I have heard, not really that big of a fan of it. It's not really a subgenre that I can really see myself getting into. So, yeah. I'm not going to go in too much into detail with this one since it kind of goes into that same thing as black metal. It's just another extreme side of metal that I'm just not personally a fan of. But deathcore, it had to make the list. Now, the next subgenre up, we got folk metal / Viking metal. I'm going to kind of combine those two together, which, you know, they might be the same thing. I know some people might say that, you know, those are two different things, but I don't know. I kind of see them as the same thing for the most part anyway. But what I mean by folk metal and Viking metal is basically these metal bands that, you know, try to sound like they just came out of a castle from the medieval times or something, you know, like, and these vocalists that have like that have these Viking chants, and, you know, these bands that have vocalists that even look like Vikings, not only look like them, but sound like them when they're delivering the vocals. And I just can't get into that stuff. I think that stuff is kind of cheesy in a way. Like, I'm just personally not a fan of that medieval style of metal. Once again, I understand that it does have a following, and you know what? That's fine. If you like it, that's fine, but for me, it's just, I can't take it. I personally just don't know how, you know, medieval styles of music are, you know, enjoyable in the year 2020. almost 2021. That just, I don't know, that I just can't take it. That's all. But again, if you like it, oh well, that's totally cool. So folk metal and Viking metal, personally not a fan of it. I just don't really have much appreciation for it. I think it's, well, in my opinion, kind of lame in a way. So the last subgenre I want to jump to is modern metalcore. Now, you guys know that I do like some metalcore, mainly the early 2000s bands, and to me that's really the only good decade of metalcore was the 2000s. Now, I know metalcore has technically been around since the 90s, and I mean, I guess I'll have to look more into 90s metalcore, but the 2000s is by far my favorite, and I would consider it the best, especially in the early 2000s. But when I mean modern metalcore, I'm mainly referring to bands that came around in the late 2000s all the way to now. Basically, late 2000s and in 2010s bands in metalcore. These bands, to me, are just some of the worst bands in metal, if you ask me. Like, I'm talking bands like the Amity Affliction, Fit for a King, and Bring Me the Horizon. Bands of that variety, basically. Oh, and Asking Alexandria, of course. I mean, just can't get into that stuff. It's a little too edgy for me, and a little too emo for me. And I don't see how this type of music even resonates with anyone in the year 2020, especially since this whole emo thing was kind of a phase thing, especially back in the early 2010s, like 2011 or something like that. But yeah, I just don't see how there's any resonation with this kind of music in the year 2020. Like, who is in 2020 going through an emo phase? You know what I'm saying? Like, that just doesn't add up to me, if you ask me. Yeah, the vocal style, way too edgy. The vocalists, they sound too whiny, and they even got the look. I mean, even their look doesn't help. Like, they got that emo haircut, like that, what is it? Justin Bieber haircut or whatever it is, or I don't know, but they even got the look as well. But yeah, not a fan of today's metalcore. Once again, sounds too edgy and too emo, and I'm just personally not a fan of it, but oh well. So there you have it, guys. That is a list of 4 metal subgenres that I'm personally not a fan of. Just thought I'd deliver this video for you guys, just to let you guys know just some things in metal that I personally am not a fan of. So once again, this is just my personal list, so let me know what you think. Do you agree with my list? Do you also not care for these subgenres of metal? If you do, please tell me why. So on that note, thanks for watching, have a nice day, and take care.